And we just had some great polling come out. I think the most accurate poll over the last 8 or 9 years was Rasmussen. They just came out with a poll that we're 5 up.
Take a look here. This is the number of polls per week that were released. So why is it that on August 18th, August 11th, why are the number of polls going down, the number of polls released? It's because of this. When the polling data fits the media narrative, the polls get released.
Let's bring on Mark Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, how are you, sir?
Doing really well. Yeah, we nailed it.
Yes, you did.
We really nailed it.
You really did nail it.
Here we go. Former President Donald Trump has maintained his lead over Vice President Kamala Harris and his support for RFK. The latest Rasmussen poll has a two-way matchup. 49% of voters vote for Trump, 44% Harris.
31% of likely voters in the Rasmussen survey say it's likely in the next 5 years America will have a second civil war.
Well, first of all, Rasmussen is like Kool-Aid drinking. You know, they have monkeys, calling people on the phone, and it's nonsense. But aside from that,
okay. This is not nonsense. I heard Oprah do a focus group on 60 Minutes. Oprah, that's not Rasmussen. We're supposed to like Oprah. Okay.
Well, you were right. You were right the first time you came on the program. I mean, you nailed it, man. And so it's like the closest we can do to having a crystal ball. And so we say thank you, Mark.
And a majority, over 60%, support laws against transgender procedures for minors. Now, this finding comes from a recent Rasmussen report survey on Americans' true feeling on the transgender ideology being shoved down their throats.
Tell me what the American people think about this, sir. You've been polling this, Mark Mitchell at Rasmussen.
So Rasmussen is an organization that engages in, polling. It is a polling company, but it's known to be a right-wing, tilted polling company. And they tweeted this out at 8:37 p.m. last night in reference to Donald Trump's mugshot. There we go.
This Rasmussen poll came out over the weekend on possible 2024 candidates. Donald Trump, and this surprised me, don't forget, we're only 8 months into Joe Biden. All right, so this should still be the honeymoon phase. I mean, 8 months is early in a presidency.
Here's why Rasmussen, I think, is the best. They go in and take tough topics and tough issues.
So, again, you could say, oh, we want to see a bigger lead for Trump. Trump +2 is bigger than he's ever done in all of our polling at this point in the election cycle. And it's like literally 2 assassination attempts, your best debate, and the DNC can't get you above Trump. The Kamala Harris campaign must be sweating and acting, begging for an act of God right now. Because in my opinion, that's all that's going to move these numbers.
In 99% of the polls, she's beating him right now. We're 7 months out, but she's beating him.
The polls are all over the place, and they're not really.
They're not really. There's one poll, a Rasmussen poll, that shows him up too.
A new Rasmussen poll, in fact, because the people get it. Much of the media doesn't get it. They actually get it, but they don't write it. Let's put it that way. But a new Rasmussen poll just came out just a very short while ago, and it has our approval rating at 55%.
Head pollster Mark Mitchell. Mark, great to have you on the show. You've been telling me you think that these left-leaning pollsters have given Kamala Harris a fake lead. You think that Donald Trump is always, and I want to put this on the board because this is an Ipsos Reuters poll that gave Kamala Harris a 7-point lead. You put that on the board, and you're thinking this was just September 24th.
Donald Trump's going to win. You had the LA Times 1-point race, Zogby 2-point race. Today you had a Rasmussen 2-point race.
We could not have a better guest joining us than Mark Mitchell, the head pollster at the hands down most respected large polling organization, the most accurate large polling organization. There's big outside groups that do analysis of that. RasmussenReports.com.
The polls were wrong.
Yes.
There were a couple of polls that got it right. Investors Business Daily was right. Rasmussen was right.
Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen polling, by the way. You can follow him directly on X at Mark_R_Mitchell. One of the best follows for polling data out there on the web.
Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports Reality Check. I'm the head pollster, Mark Mitchell, and what a weird day. What a weird place we are in the news cycle. It feels to me like something's changed. I don't know. It was really quiet over the weekend. People felt exhausted after the crazy last week with the markets. And today, there was a lot of interesting news, but it didn't feel like a lot of big news. It feels like where we're at is this potentially, maybe this war of attrition, this public opinion war of attrition where Donald Trump may have lost his honeymoon status. And so now maybe the press feels emboldened, like they can try and get away with more things. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about Harry Enten is out there saying that Trump approval is plunging, using some really strong words and relying on a lot of statistics. So we're going to take a look and put that into perspective about where we really are. Because again, what I think they're trying to do is figure out a way, any way they can. They tried the stock market crash. Black Monday last week didn't work. They've tried literally everything. They're going to try new stuff and anything they can do to try and handicap Donald Trump's mandate because it threatens the establishment and they will not have that. The deep state will do whatever it can in order to avoid accountability. And what we're going to look at is not just Trump approval, because we've looked at that a lot. We're going to look at specifically this issue of the economy, which is bigger than the stock market. We talked about that, but it's also bigger than jobs. It's a concept that Americans have been dealing with for a very long time. It isn't a new thing that just got kicked off last week because of Liberation Day. And we're going to put that into perspective. Also have some really fascinating numbers that we haven't talked about either about crime. And that was thrust into the headlines today with a really great clip from Bukele, El Salvador. And then also some numbers that I don't think that I've revealed yet at all. Unless you saw Barry, I think I gave a preview. But we're going to talk about China and where we're at and where people's opinions, thoughts, emotional states, where this is going to go, because I think people are starting to get a little bit crazy again. A lot crazy, actually. So let's kick it off with Harry.
I would argue this is the worst set of polling data that Donald Trump has had in his entire second term as president, in part because the CBS News YouGov poll that came out yesterday has been one of his best. Let's first take a look at how folks are feeling about the state of the economy. Think that the economy is getting worse. Well, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to see the trend line on your screen, and it is getting worse. More folks are feeling the economy is going southward. Back in November, it was just 42% of Americans who said the economy is getting worse. You jump forward to February, 49%. You jump forward to March, 51%. Now look at this number, 53%. The clear majority of Americans think that the economy is getting worse. It's an 11-point jump from November to now. And of course, Donald Trump won the 2024 election because he promised to fix the economy. And yet, views of the economy are going down. The percentage who say it's getting worse is going up, Sarah.
I'll just add, I poll like every day. We put questions in the field every 3 days. We haven't had a chance to poll specifically this kind of question about the economy. I think that they decided to make this particular question a set piece for their Trump 2.0 coverage. And in my opinion, that's because they planned for one of their biggest weapons to be their use of the mainstream media to confuse people, to conflate economic issues. Because I'll be honest with you, on some topics, the American voter is a little squishy, and economics is one of them.
Okay, so usually the former administration actually is responsible for the economy, especially in the first couple of years of the new presidency. So who are people blaming for this?
This, to me, is a very interesting trend line that we're seeing develop over the last few months. All right, so of course, Joe Biden was the last president. Donald Trump is the current president. Donald Trump wants to say, don't blame me if you're upset with the state of the economy. Blame the other guy. I don't think Americans are buying what he's selling at this particular point, at least anymore. More responsible for the economic state. They asked about inflation back in March. Look at this, 38% said. Notice
he's cherry picking two different questions. These are two different questions. Inflation and economy are not necessarily the same thing. Depends on the subtext.
Joe Biden, 34% said Donald Trump. But look at where we are this month when they asked about the general state of the economy. Look at how much higher the Trump number is. 54%. The Joe Biden percentage drops through the floor at 21%. So this idea that Donald Trump will try to sell to the American public, is trying to sell to the American public, is that it's the other guy. It's not me. It's that other guy, that old guy, Joe Biden. No longer is this being, the American public is no longer buying this set of arguments like they were back in March. And of course, what is so important here? We have had the tariff war in the last month.
This is another false dichotomy. He's like trying to compare Trump's ownership of the economy to Biden's. Here's the thing. Americans had written off Biden. Like over 60% thought it was a puppet presidency. 68% wanted him to get a mental health test going all the way back to like, I think it was January of 22. He like resigned his candidacy back in July. He hasn't been on the world stage. Kamala Harris has taken over as the Democrat frontrunner. Nobody cares about Biden. That's part of it. And I'll tell you the reason that the 38 was there for Biden is because Biden owns the inflation issue. This isn't Trump owning the economy now. It's Biden owning the inflation then, but whatever.
What's going on? I believe that a massive shift is occurring because Americans are seeing what's happening on their television screens. They are seeing what's happening in the stock market. They're seeing what's happening in the bond market. One day, Donald Trump says one thing about the tariff war. The next day, he says another thing. One day, one of his advisors says one thing. The next day, that same.
So they don't like the chaos.
And all of a sudden, Americans are picking up on this. And this idea that Donald Trump is trying to sell, that you can blame Joe Biden. Look at this again. This percentage, 54 to 21. A clear majority now are blaming Donald Trump for the state of the economy, not Joe Biden.
It's clear they're literally not buying it. All right, so how
nice little jab there. Unbelievable.
The uncertainty, the back and forth, the flip-flopping, how is that affecting his overarching?
Oh, she used the flip-flop term.
This is so important, right? We've been talking about the economy, right? We talked about it last week. We spoke about it the week before. This has been the #1 story of the Trump presidency. And I made you viewers a promise.
I don't know if that's the case.
If prices go up and voters' thoughts on the economy go down, that would bring Donald Trump's approval rating down with him. That was the promise I made. And let's take a look at whether or not that's actually occurring, because that's the whole.
Oh, boy. Here it is.
Linked, who really cares, right? Except for our 401ks. Trump's net approval rating. Look at this. It's a huge slide in it. In early February, it was plus 6 points. Then you go to late February, plus 2 points. Then you go to March, it's even. And look at this massive jump from late March to now, minus 6 points. That's a 6-point drop in less than a month. And why is that occurring? It is because of the tariff war. The voters are punishing Donald Trump in one of his best polls, which now even that best poll is a negative poll for Donald Trump.
Your promise came true, but I have the feeling you would not have done this if your promise was completely wrong.
I get to choose my own segments here, aside.
Now, you might notice that he gets to choose his own segments. I don't know how much of that is true. You got to be like schizophrenic to follow this guy. It's like you get whiplash. Just last week, I think the terms he used was that Trump was a soaring eagle, accomplishing more than any other president and setting a new paradigm in the way a president is able to get things done. Now we're talking about a historic plunge in Trump approval, 12 points, catastrophic, all predicated on the market. That appears to be the weapon they're going to use because they do reach people. People are really, honestly, quite confounded, I think, by the economy. They conflate a lot of things. The headlines about stock market plunges, even though most people don't own stocks, does get through to these people, and they're going to keep hammering it. And I think it really shows like where this is coming from. They talk about chaos over and over again, because let's just look at the S&P. Like let's look at the S&P 500. It's down 4 points on the month. 4 points. It did a 9-point round trip. In the grand scheme of things, this is absolutely nothing. This is literally nothing. In fact, it looks like it's stabilizing. VIX is already down to 30. Not a lot's changed except for tariffs with China. Now, I can understand why they don't like Donald Trump's aggressive walking back and launching all the tariffs at once and then scaling back. Now, I talked about this before. I think Trump's an intuitive leader. He makes decisions based on limited information, and if things change, he'll make a new decision. And what I think happened is that they put tariffs on everybody, and the world started to puke. They started selling U.S. Treasuries, and yields started to go up, especially the 10-year. And Donald Trump, like for whatever reason, said, hey, you know, maybe that's not a right thing. Maybe that's not good. And so they backed off. Now, who was selling those treasuries? Probably China, although they have less than they did before, ostensibly under $800 billion. But other countries as well. I guess Europe probably didn't like the fact that they just got socked with a bunch of tariffs too. They've been eating our bonds, as has Japan. But obviously, they have levers and they decided to use them, although it's been accused, I've seen by Zero Hedge, that Luxembourg and whatnot, Liechtenstein or wherever, have maybe another couple $100 billion of Chinese-held U.S. treasuries, but whatever. Yields went back down today. So what that means, I think, is that when you have chaos in the stock market, people flee to safety, buying U.S. treasuries. It's a safe haven. You know, China selling 100 billion in treasuries doesn't change that. And so they're fighting the market. But let's talk about where we have Donald Trump right now. Here's his approval rating. This is the snapshot. I took the little charts from our website, and you can see in the grand scheme of things, he what is that? I mean, it's 50, right? He's been like, he got to 51, 52. He got down to 50 in the first 2 weeks of his term. And then he got up a little bit. I think this was probably based on like Doge, some great headlines about people being confirmed, stuff like that. But in the, you know, we're talking essentially what last week was a couple point variation. He got down to 47%. So he's at 48% right now. He's down a few points, going back up. It's been pretty stable at 48%. This is mountain out of a molehill, to be honest with you. Again, say this over and over again. Biden was about a 44% president, like total, like including the honeymoons and all the good times and the bad. 44% president. Donald Trump's been a 50% president so far, maybe 51. Now, you'll also notice that he came in at 56 and he got down to 47. So that's down 9 points, back up a point. Pretty similar to the CBS 12-point drop. And where he's taken it, I guess, is in the approval index here. Strongly approve minus strongly disapprove. He's underwater. Like Joe Biden spent most of his term between -20 and -30. 48% approval, 50% disapprove. But the big number is that right track is back up to 45%. That is really high. And it would not be this high if this isn't what people voted for. They, I think, understood that chaos was part of the Trump package. Republican approval is drifting back up. Independent approval is back to only Trump -3. So it was a response bias. And let's see, when did CBS actually poll? When was that -6 from CBS? And I'll tell you, they are a lot more accurate than they used to be. Turns out all it takes is a $20 billion lawsuit from the Trump administration, campaign rather. But isn't it really grand that CNN would pick the CBS number, which is one of the lower ones here, a day after Donald Trump absolutely roasted them on a Truth Social post because of how disingenuous their 60-minute coverage has been. So Harvard-Harris has Donald Trump up +2. 48% to 46%. And I'm pretty sure CBS went into the field now. Look at these dates. April 8th to April 11th. That was like peak stock market chaos. They were polling right in the middle of it. That's when we had Trump at 47 too. So their number wasn't that different than ours. I bet you if they went into the field right now, they'd probably get a Trump -3 or -2, but they're not going to. And CNN next week will just cherry pick somebody else. Maybe The Economist, who also uses YouGov, just like CBS. Remember, everybody is consolidating here. And the YouGov is one of those proprietary panels that only has, I don't know how many people, but it's the same people over and over again. But let's see. Let's look at the industry and not just CBS. We have Trump coming in at +6. And now he's underwater, call it 4. So a 10-point drop. Well, my numbers showed a 9-point drop. Let's see. Where does that put us? In the Trump first term, he entered in, what is this? 0, net plus 0, 6 points worse. They really hated Trump back then. I actually had Trump come into his first term very similar to the second term, but whatever. They really sandbagged him back then. But then fast forward to the middle of April, and he's underwater 10 points. Interesting. So he lost 10 points at this point in this term. He lost 10 points at this point in last term. Like who else? Who else lost 10 points? Oh, look at Biden approval. He comes in at, this is like, I hate to use the word. No, I don't hate to use this word. This is retarded. Joe Biden's approval was never this high. He came in at under 55 in our numbers. And our disapprove was way higher than this, in the mid 40s. So this is him plus 20. Plus 20. Donald Trump would have beat him this time out, and Donald Trump comes out of the gate at plus 6 right now. You see the industry just absolutely despises Donald Trump. But they had him at plus 20, and then fast forward to like middle of April, and it's, what's that? It's a little less than plus 12. So he lost 8 points. And I'll tell you, people were really happy here. Right direction was high because all the COVID measures were rolling off. And, not long after that, after this spring, he immediately starts plunging too. So this is normal. People lose the sugar high. That's what happens. It's absolutely normal. And I can tell you there's some other reasons that I'm very suspicious about this CBS poll. Now, here's the story. Trump tariff plans bring concern about prices, financial impact, but the GOP base sees jobs long term. Well, yeah. Let's look at some of these breakdowns here. Get out of here. Impact of new tariffs on prices. Oh, I don't like how they did this. Short term, long term. 48% think it's going to increase prices long term. This isn't useful to me without the party breakdowns. Impact of new tariffs on U.S. economy. 42% say it's going to make it worse long term. 34% make it better. So 34%, 57% say it's going to have no impact on the economy or make it better. The impact of tariffs on manufacturing jobs will add jobs. Spoiler alert, we talked about this Friday. Jobs are what people want, not the stock market. It's over, I think it's a little under a 3-to-1 margin. It was like 63% to, I forget. We'll pull it up in a little bit. Impact of tariffs on manufacturing jobs. The U.S. will add jobs. 85% of Republicans, like Donald Trump's been talking about it for a really long time. But independents also 43% to 28%. Democrats are upside down here. Only 42% say it's going to lose jobs. Tariffs and trade, Trump's goal versus Trump's approach. They like it, 51% his goal. And that's, exactly what his margin was in the election. Oh, they don't like his approach. Where's the other issue they had? Trade policies, tariffs, jobs, policies, worse off, better off. We'll look at our numbers because I don't trust this because of, where is it? The immigration one. I'm just going to have to roll F for it. There we go. Did they hide it? Is it not in here? Well, whatever. They had Trump even on immigration. I'm not digging through the crosstabs tonight on this one. They had Trump even on the issue of immigration. And I can tell you that that is not where he's at because people voted for him because of the border crackdown. And they're really happy. And so, again, I think this is one of the situations where maybe their approval isn't that off and it was cherry-picked to be at the absolute worst time for Donald Trump. But this is one of those panels that perennially, even if the top line is right, the fundamentals, the internals, the Trump approval, the Trump on the issues, like all of that stuff is always too far left. And we've covered it like time and time again. Yeah, we don't have to get into this, but this is the zero hedge coverage of out of control. CBS's 60 Minutes should lose their license. And so here's the thing. If you're CNN and you're picking a poll and you're trying to like do the best job for your viewers, like maybe not put one that has a conflict of interest here. I just don't get it. All right, let's talk the economy, though, because I dug some stuff up. We're going to go into crosstabs now. And I went back to 22 because what I wanted to show you is that the economy has been the problem for the entire Biden administration. And so they can ask the question about Biden now, and people will be like, yeah, whatever, Trump's president. But the question is, why did they vote for Trump? What did they think they were going to get? And what is Trump going to give them? And they think a better economy. Is the U.S. economy currently in a recession? Keep in mind, they're trying another psychological operation to convince everybody that Trump is bringing a recession. And I don't think voters know or care about the actual definition, which is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. I don't know if that really affects people that much, to be honest with you, but I'll tell you, it freaks out a lot of people in the financial markets. But back in 2022, is the U.S. economy currently in a recession? 62% said yes. Only 23% said no. Everybody agreed across age, gender, race, and 83% of Republicans, even a plurality of Democrats, 47%, independents, 57% to 24%. This is like felt recession. This is the reality on the streets. They do not care about how whoever calculates it, I forget. They don't care. How important will economic issues be in this year's congressional election? 66%, very important, really high number. 25%, somewhat important. That's over 90%. It's basically everybody, except less Democrats. Oh, the economy doesn't matter. 55%, very important. Oh, no, dude, don't worry about that. It's fine. We don't need the economy to be good in order to pick a president to elect. You agree or disagree with this statement? Democrats inherited an economy that was primed for a historic comeback and promptly ran it straight into the ground. Strong statement. 59% agree, 45% strongly, 27% disagree. So yeah, again, this is like 3 years ago. Tell me again how Trump owns the economy. Here we're fast forwarding to 2023. Over the past year, has the U.S. economy gotten better or worse? 56% worse, 29% better. Actually, 50% of Democrats thought that Joe Biden was making the economy better, not because they all own stocks, but because they all view legacy media outlets who are, mouthpieces for the establishment. It's all billionaires. It's all the financial industry. It's all the interests offshoring to China. 75% of Republicans said worse, but if you don't believe the Republicans, look at the independents. 62% said worse. Only 21% said better. Again, people say that Kamala Harris was a bad candidate, but this is what she had to work with. 3-1 independents say that Joe Biden has made the economy worse. And this is only 1 year out, a little over 1 year out from the election. She had a bad hand. I mean, obviously she sucked as a candidate, but she had a bad hand. How do you rate the way President Biden is handling economic issues? 37%. Excellent or good. Keep that in your mind. 21% excellent. Independents, 15% excellent. 11% good. 26%. So 1 in 4 independents. Really low numbers. How important will economic issues be in the presidential election? Even higher numbers now, 93%, 71%, very important. So it kept getting worse and worse. Now you have distrust about, okay, you're going to tell us that the economy is in a recession. The Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics has admitted that it previously overestimated the number of new jobs created in the past year, which is more likely that it was an honest mistake or that it was politically motivated. A majority of U.S. likely voters, not even a year ago, said that it was politically motivated. 53%, only 1 in 3 said an honest mistake. So they don't care about your economic indicators. They think you're lying to them for political reasons. Look at Democrats. 31% of Democrats said the BLS was lying under Biden's administration. 72% of Republicans and independents, 58% to 29%, overwhelmingly. Zero trust in the government. How likely is it that the revised job estimate signals that the U.S. economy is headed into a recession? 59%, almost 60% say it's at least somewhat likely. 31% say very likely. I mean, voters had a recession. Their elite financial bettors just didn't deem it necessary to tell them. thinking about the presidential election, which candidate do you trust more to handle the economy? Donald Trump, 52% to 44%. Again, I think it's a blip. I think it was a squishy target that they manipulated. We'll have to see if there are going to be more of these, because China's probably got some tricks up the sleeve that's going to play. But if Donald Trump starts unveiling these really positive trade deals, maybe it won't be a thing. I don't know. But here we go. Here's some more stuff. How do you rate the way President Trump is handling the economy? From last month, 48%, 30% excellent, 18% good. That's higher by 11 points than Joe Biden. And already Trump was talking tariffs, and there was, so this wasn't exactly, it's not exactly at the height, right? This wasn't Liberation Day, but there's been some swings. The market's been back and forth. It's been stagnating. So I guess there's a feel of recession coming. People have been talking about it, but again, 48% excellent or good. Only 40% say poor. What was poor for Joe Biden? 51%. A majority of likely voters, randomly sampled in the middle of Biden's term, 51% said he did a poor job on the economy. Is President Trump's economic policy better or worse than Biden's? Better, 47%, 40% worse, +7. So this wasn't like a flash in the pan. Donald Trump's built his supporters. The voters fundamentally trust the components of his economic plan. Bring back jobs, reshore manufacturing, tax cuts, spur economic growth, level the playing field, maybe redistribute wealth. I think that's what they're here for. And a little bit of fear about the stock market and a whole bunch of people yelling at him about the chaos, it's not going to do it. This is where they're coming from. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? 56% say no. That's really bad. 40% say they are better, but the numbers got even lower the next time we asked it. And again, this is down from, a decade or two ago. The number of people who said they were better off than they were 4 years ago, much higher. When did it flip? After the great financial crisis. The wealth and power got concentrated. Republicans and Democrats worked together to screw over the little guy to cap off decades of globalization. And then we talked about this. I mean, approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's tariff policies. 43% still approve, but 52% disapprove. So he's under 9 points with the tariff policies. But again, people don't understand tariffs. And 64% of people think it's likely we're going to have a recession directly because of tariffs in a poll where Donald Trump has a 48% approval rating. That's because 40% of the people that approve of Trump are like, yeah, we're going to get a recession. We're going to get a recession. And we had in another poll, 80% of Trump voters said specifically, yes, this is what I voted for. So they're going to stick with him. Which is more important, keeping a strong stock market for investors, 21%, creating more jobs for the American worker, 63%, 3-to-1 margin. So again, why did his numbers take a hit? I don't think it's that many people changing their mind. I really don't. I think it's response bias. I think it's people getting pissed. Oh, hands off. Oh, that's their new call to arms. Hands off my economy, hands off my pink pussy hat, whatever, right? That's what they're running with mentally, that they want Donald Trump to stop. They want somebody to stop him. They want a judge to step in. They want some crazy guy to throw a Molotov cocktail or something, right? I don't know. But it's not going to stop. And people are going to come back. The people, let me rephrase that. The people who are now answering the polls because they're super mad at Donald Trump will go away again. And I don't think they're representative of the voting public. All right. Before we go to the next topic, I'm going to say hi to everybody. Sorry I didn't say it coming in, but hello. I'm doing well. Had a good weekend. And if you're following right now, please hit like, subscribe if you haven't already. Help the algorithm get this to more people. Looks like we got a really good crew. And that's awesome because I didn't know what to expect. Again, it was such a weird weekend. It seemed so quiet. If you think I missed some of the major news so far, drop it in the chat. We can talk about it later. I got a Mandarin Orange. It's not La Croix. And I don't have a beer waiting for me. I'm sad. Good thing only 10 people from Lynn. Only 10 people watch CNN, basically. There's something about CNN I really don't know, because I think MSNBC viewers, there's more of them. I think CNN probably took a bigger ratings hit. I haven't checked them recently. But there's something about CNN that just makes me, it just screams Intel. The way they hold themselves, their focus on international stuff, the way that they're a little bit more particular about what's commentary and what's actual news. And maybe Anderson Cooper's ties. I don't know. There's stuff about Caitlin Collins that just doesn't make sense either. Like, why was she hand signaling Zelensky? It makes no sense. And so, look, we have a public opinion aficionado. Solitary gamer. Rasmussen reports in Harvard-Harris. And yet Harvard-Harris has Trump +2 in approval. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe we'll get up there, or maybe they just got like a normie sample, and so they're not sure it was kind of high. But I think their approval number was 48, just like ours. We kind of track with them, so maybe mine will go back up. We'll see. Man, it'll make a bunch of people happy, because then I'll do a video like Trump's back, baby. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Harry, I'm sticking with Rasmussen. Well, Harry doesn't even poll. That's the thing. He just, I don't even know if he gets to pick his own numbers. He might just have a producer say, hey, this is what you're running with tonight. Come up with some flashy words. Do a little, throw some jazz hands up. Maybe I'll try sometime when I'm alone, get a whiteboard out and try and do a Harry Enton bit and see if I can see if I can have as much pizzazz. All the dum-dums glorified Bidenomics. Trump said it was going to be a rough ride to pull America back, pulling American jobs back to the U.S. and American people. Yeah, I think like the people are kind of in for this. It's the elite that aren't. And I talked to somebody actually just today, and it was another black pill, somebody in the know within the political circles. And he's like, yeah, pretty much everybody, even on the right, are owned by like pharma or China. And I'd imagine China is really mad right now, super mad. In fact, they're probably like really concerned with the things I've heard about orders being cut off and inventory piling up, people not coming in for work. Civil unrest is not a pretty thing over there. If it happens, we'll see. What do we got? Yep, everybody echoing this sentiment. I'm sticking with Trump. I know what he's trying to do, and he will exceed. Economy for the people, returning the American dream. That's what he ran on. Wes Downer, China's already running out of steam. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've heard some posturing that makes me think no, they're going to dig in. And I actually have not a lot of, there's a lot they could do. I think that they have a lot of levers that we haven't even begun to imagine. They've probably been gaming this out for a long time. And I hope it doesn't escalate, but this could get ugly. This is our biggest geopolitical rival. They're very ambitious people. And who knows? It all comes down to their internal politics. Maybe I need to follow that a little bit closer. I don't know. The economy already added 62% more jobs than expected in March. Yeah, it was a good jobs report. The unemployment rate's still in the 4s when I'm getting an 8% number every month. So we're tracking our unemployment number, hasn't changed yet. And it probably has some noise. It might take a while for it to do it. We also have a consumer confidence index that maybe I'll look into that and put some charts up next time around. I really haven't taken a look. Every night we're asking people if we're in a recession or not, and I just don't have very good graphics on it. Otherwise, I would have brought it. CNN and CBS are not neutral. Hard agree. And unfortunately, what it comes down to is if you have major advertisers that are large Fortune 500 companies, You're probably not neutral. We don't. Those guys do. Ted is super stoked about the idea of potentially CBS losing their broadcaster's license. He thinks that'll really hit him. And it'll be a very embarrassing and hilarious outcome. And maybe we'll see that happen. Trump's FCC could do it. They have enough to work with, that's for sure. I don't know about the markets overall, but my count is 2.1% above where it was on election day, which is better than inflation. Well, good for you. Stocks are mutuals. You know, maybe you did a good job picking stocks. The thing that I don't like when I look at the numbers is that the Russell is getting hurt more than the Dow is. And that means that small and mid-cap companies are sort of taking this one in the pants. And I was wishing it would be the other way around. But quite frankly, the bigger corporations have a lot of ways to weather these things. I wish that the FTC would be more aggressive. But hey, you know, Facebook had their hearing today. That would be incredible. If WeChat and Instagram got split out from Facebook, it would be really interesting. Trump is doing well. All the media Democrats supported by the deep state global. Yeah, I mean, he is. All right. What I wanted to talk about is something that we haven't really brought up much, and that's the issue of crime. And it was a big issue, but just not the number one issue. And what's fascinating is it got crowded out by, in my opinion, also a signal about crime, the border. But I also think the border was an economic signal. So I think that really, when you add up border and the economy, like almost 2/3 of people were like, we need jobs. We need to get the people out who are taking our jobs. We need housing. We need to get the people out who are making things more expensive and living on the taxpayer dole in many cases. I know most of them maybe are not. But violent crime was like number 4 and was actually really important early in Biden's term. And so we're going to explore that. And the reason we're going to take a look at it too is because just like another stunner today, El Salvador's president issues the ultimate challenge to Trump. He dropped a line so good, President Trump asked if he could steal it. And I hope everybody's seeing this for the very first time. Hit like if you are, because it's absolutely incredible. Oh, is this not the clip? All right, here it is. Sorry.
And we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, if sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like...
That's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. You know, but to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, you know, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already. And I'm sure that people have seen the change in the streets. A long way to go because you're just initiating your second term. But it's clear that, you know, with the numbers at the border, you know, when even in Democrat-run cities, they get a help from the work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help. And
liberate. You got to liberate American citizens from the regime of crime that we've had. Open lawlessness. In many ways, border being overrun, cities burning down, violent criminals walking on cash bail policies. I mean, it's just crazy. All that stuff is wildly unpopular, and we'll take a look at a little bit of it. But I just loved it. I mean, this guy has charisma. I hadn't really watched him talk very much. And he also mentioned, you know, we're going to start seeing changes. I've actually heard just anecdotally from people, emergency rooms are kind of empty, you know, things are happening. I think things are happening, especially the stuff that is the wild card. This Donald Trump self-deportation stuff. We're going to fine you $1,000 a day. We're going to put you, kill you in the Social Security database. You're not going to be able to return. And I think it's I think it's having an impact. But let's go back and just look at crime as an issue. This is one of the ones we did right before the midterm just to see why people were voting. And I'm going to have to try and add all these up on the fly. How concerned are you about inflation? 85%, 55% vary. How concerned are you about violent crime? 86%, higher than inflation. This would have been about peak inflation, not long after massive increases of like 9% year over year in prices. Not that long after that. It was very real in people's heads right then. 61% very concerned, 4 points more than inflation. So it was a big issue. We'll see if it's number one out of all these issues here. And Republicans cared about it a lot, but it's one of those things where, again, Democrats didn't care that much about inflation. Obviously, a lot of them are well-to-do or maybe older on fixed incomes, and that would affect them. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Democrats cared about violent crime more. Independents, like quite a bit more. Abortion rates, the number's only 70. Abortion, 50% vary, way less than the other two. Illegal immigration, also not that high. And the reason, obviously, is Democrats cared a lot about abortion. Republicans cared a lot about illegal immigration. Independents were roughly split. Cheating in elections. Oh, we got another winner here. This is 75%, higher than illegal immigration. How's that? That's a really important issue that nobody talks about. 10% more people are very concerned about cheating in elections than illegal immigration. But again, violent crime is still in number one place. How concerned are you about climate change? That loses. So this was, when asked this way, the number one issue. Of course, if you list these all, people would say inflation, because the economy always wins those, pick from multiple ones. But it was a really important one that had a lot of impact. And here's some other polling as an example. This from almost a year ago. So going into this electoral season, Joe Biden just gave a State of the Union. He's on video falling downstairs and stuff, trying to time that sundowner so he could give a good debate performance, probably. Is the problem of violent crime in America getting better or worse? 16% say better, 61% say worse. Really bad numbers. Not good at all. Let's see what the Democrats were at. Only 28% of Democrats say under Biden, the problem's getting better. 38% say worse. 82% of Republicans say worse. Pretty much like independents, 66% to 12%. So again, this is one of those things where people aren't really like, this is not one where the media can just bang away with a coordinated psychological operations like they can with the economy. They say, oh, look at the stock market. We're going to use that to bundle up all of your feelings and emotions about every economic aspect. That's what they do. Can't really do that with violent crime. And this had an impact. How much? I don't know. Again, it was like number 3 or 4 when you asked people to sort them. But they burned down cities. Again, I keep thinking it's a miracle that Trump won by as little as he did. I'm following Emerald Robinson's election integrity thread. If you haven't seen it, you got to go check it out. Maybe Wednesday, I'm trying to get her on. But maybe Wednesday we'll just read through that thing, because it's absolutely incredible. Which party do you trust more to handle crime and law enforcement issues? Republicans, 53%, to Democrats, 35%. This is basically like 6 months out to a presidential election. The matchups are tightening up. The response biases are going away. People are starting to get politically engaged. And Republicans are winning by almost 20 points on the issue of law enforcement. That's a very strong signal. Very, very, very strong signal. 48% rate Biden poor on crime issues. Not as bad as the economy. That was 51%. But again, right now, Donald Trump is a 40 poor on economic issues. Joe Biden was a 48 on crime, and he was still president, right? Like, this is why my polling shows that Joe Biden has a structurally lower job approval rating than Trump does. But for some reason, every other pollster in the industry has Biden regularly beating Trump. Doesn't make sense. Is the problem of violent crime in America getting better or worse? Time and time again, 12% better, 60% worse. Same kind of breakdown when we look at border. Is the government doing too much or not enough? It's always like 60% not enough, 12 to 15% too much. And we'll take a look at this too, because we actually had polling done by the National Police Association. We had a couple. We went after the Soros prosecutors, and it's an interesting poll, but it's a little bit of like a push poll. I don't really do those. Like, we disclose the entire question, but it's like, hey, George Gascon did this. And it's like all the people he let on the streets, and do you approve or disapprove? And obviously, like, there were some people like, oh yeah, that's great. How concerned are you about recent increases in violent crime? Like, everybody's concerned, 90%. Do you think that violent crime is out of control? 70% yes, 22% no, 60% of Democrats, bipartisan. Like 21% of people here recently considered a change in residence because of violent crime. Like 1 in 5 voters are dealing with this on a daily basis. Do you think, again, the violent criminals walk? They get preferential treatment. The people who try to protect bystanders get prosecuted. Do you think police in your area are too tough on violent crime? 78% say no. Only 9% say yes. Only 12% of Democrats say yes. 18 to 39-year-olds, 17%. I don't know what's happening there. Maybe they get like pulled over too many times and they don't like that they have to pay the tickets. I don't know, but it's like nobody. Like, nobody says yes. Do you feel that your local police department has the necessary resources to battle violent criminals? Only 44% say yes. Like, on and on. Like, this is a really big issue for people. Nobody talked about it at all. Do you think letting accused violent criminals out of jail without bail while they wait for trial increases violent crime? Imagine that. Voters are not stupid. 73% say yes. 14% say no. So here we are with like Soros DAs undermining the fabric of our society. And it just didn't work. It's like luxury beliefs work to an extent as long as you can control the narrative and keep canceling people that buck the, the narratives. But when you actually take luxury beliefs and implement them, it does not work. You lose elections. And it's crazy that, again, they came as close as they did. I feel like soon we're going to hear the whole story. All right. I have a few more tabs. Let me try and catch up. Anybody have any questions? Again, on this channel, if you have a real question, the odds of me seeing are way higher if you actually write question first. Gary Garriton. Trump is going to buy CBS after he's out of office. He's not done when he's done being president. Civilian Trump is going to be a nightmare for the left. Yeah, he's still a kingmaker. I can tell you that his endorsement power is epic, and he hasn't yet had the full impact he needs to on the Republican Party. I also think that his circle of influence is not done being in the political spotlight. I'm trying to put that in a nice way, but he built a brand, and it'd be a shame to just retire it. I almost guarantee you that's how they're thinking about it. But as far as CBS is concerned, CBS is going to get to a point, I suspect, where they're going to want to settle. You've also seen law firms who Trump has signed executive orders to take away their security clearances, capitulate by offering hundreds of millions of dollars of pro bono services. And so I think that it's an extreme possibility that maybe CBS will offer something like that to Donald Trump. some kind of airwave deal for like public benefit where he puts like, I don't know if it'll be MAGA stuff, but I don't know. I think it's maybe they can get Doge on there. That was my idea. Get Doge on CBS. Leona, I disagree. Facebook is an American company. We want USA companies to win over DeepSeek, a China company. Yeah, but here's the thing. It's like that money spent not in a major conglomerate, a major roll-up of multiple businesses, ostensibly doesn't benefit that much from the synergies of all those companies being combined. A pure play, OpenAI style, we are training an AI. Ostensibly, the money still works. Like you spun it out from Facebook, whatever entity it is under Facebook. And again, I don't know if it wouldn't live with Facebook. I think the issue they have is with WhatsApp and Instagram and how they're used together to corner the market. And so, again, I don't think it would get spun out of Meta, but even if it would, ostensibly, it wouldn't change the fact that there's investment money available to do that. And I don't think that prevents it from challenging DeepSeek. But again, you have massive company that was involved in fixing elections. Donald Trump's in town. It's better for America when there is creative destruction. And I understand the idea of having strong industries and being competitive, but it's like, does it affect anybody who uses WhatsApp if it just isn't under the Facebook umbrella? Like, I have a hard time saying that that's the case. And I also like the idea of, I don't know. There hasn't been enough creative destruction. My issue is that over the last 20 or 30 years, one of the reasons middle class people have gotten screwed so much is because there have been no consequences for bad decision making, collusion, like rent seeking behavior in major corporations. And I don't think, again, free market capitalism is massive $500 billion corporations using their ability to infinitely raise money to shut Main Street out of retail. Like, I just don't think that that's free market capitalism. I think that the government should be constantly figuring out how to balance that to take away the advantage that companies like Walmart has. It will drive up the expense potentially of these goods as our supply chains get less efficient, but it'll make more jobs. And then people will have more money to buy that stuff. And the issue here is that we're in a constant situation of scarcity. That's what I think people voted for, is for an economy where there is no more scarcity. I heard somebody talking about how, well, it's stupid bringing manufacturing back because look at this poll I did on Twitter, and Americans don't even want manufacturing jobs. That's right. They don't want current manufacturing jobs. They don't pay enough. They're on average. They're not in great work environments, but the whole point is to require more manufacturing workers so that the wage goes up, so that those jobs are enviable. That's what I'd like to see, because people had, great financially secure lives, built families on like a single manufacturing income. Where did that go? Well, Walmart sent it to China. Sorry, I ranted, but I think it was good stuff. Media is biased. They would rather see America fail rather than Trump to succeed. But we, the people, see through that. Yeah. Like basically everybody in Washington, D.C. and in a major corporation wants to see Donald Trump fail. Like basically everybody over VP level. I mean, all right, here we go. Question. What's your take on Whitmer's Mime Act? Oh, yeah, I tweeted it and said, oh, it's so presidential. For people who haven't seen that, it's hilarious. I don't know why, but she went to the White House for some event and there was a photo op and she did this. Hold on. Look at that. How presidential. And what's scary is she's getting 7-8% of Democrat support for a primary. That puts her, you know, she's a player. She's definitely a player. This is what they'll be voting for. And I can't look at this and say that it's any different than the kind of stuff that AOC is doing right now, or Tim Walz, for God's sakes, out there saying that he's going to fight Republicans. They're just clowns. And again, I think they're clowns that are going to lose major electoral upper hands between now and 2026. Knock on wood. Let me get this lady out of here. Free market capitalism does not actually exist. Same as free trade does not exist. Yeah, I think probably the right way to think about them is a goal, an ideal, a mission. We want as free market capitalism as possible. And at the end of the day, right, we want, you know, this isn't equality of outcomes, it's equality of opportunity. And some people are just not going to be able to succeed in a free market economy to the same extent as others. We don't want to be a drag on exceptionalism for sure. But let me tell you, from being inside the belly of the beast at Walmart, it does some things exceptional. But on the whole, it is not exceptional. Like, it's taking advantage of the fact that it can raise infinite capital, it can get super cheap debt financing. I'm surprised it hasn't been carved out of tariffs yet. Like, every one of these big companies gets a super boost mega advantage. And it's like, well, when you're big enough to have a K Street lobbyist, that's when it starts to happen. Or when you're big enough to get your own equity analyst coverage in an investment bank, and that equity analyst wants to roll into your finance department. It's just really so perverse. And these problems always persist, but that's why we need an actual government with an integrity that's willing to get a little rough and tumble in order to enforce this stuff. Statement: Republicans, Democrats, and socialists suck. MAGA is the true future. America first. I think it's a great statement. And those two things you wrote are kind of like, that's the problem, right? That is the problem. I think everybody is really, really co-opted. Yeah, Tim Pond. Jazz hands. Tim Pond. Nice. All right, we're going to go to a few more things. Now, this is just stuff that I find interesting because we are in an economic war with China. This isn't really a tariff war. This is an extension of the asymmetrical fifth generation warfare that they're playing out on America that they've been planning for a long time. Like, they've been doing troop drills and, you know, stockpiling blood donation. Like, they've been doing a lot of this stuff for a very, very, very long time. And, you know, there's a lot of, let's read through this. I didn't have a chance to like fully read through this, but it's something I wanted to look at. China would lose a trade war. Here's one view from Victor David Hansen, with the U.S. gradually, then suddenly. And we'll actually look at an opposing point of view. We'll look at that next. Before we get to some polling, and then we're going to get to Reddit. Don't want to miss that. No one wants a trade war with China, or for that matter, with any nation. Nonetheless, China has been waging one for years, yes, and is now locked in a tariff recalibration with the Trump administration. Recalibration is a very good word. In this American effort to find trade parity and equity, I don't like that he used equity there, but I understand what he's saying. We can talk about my opinion on what equity is maybe some other time, but China can do some short-term damage to the U.S., especially in terms of ceasing exports of some pharmaceuticals, phones, and computers. Now, I wonder, Trump temporarily carved out some electronics. Haven't really heard about the pharmaceuticals. I think that would probably be a low blow and maybe escalate things, but I don't know. Ultimately, it can't win and will eventually lose catastrophically. It will likely accept that that reality sooner rather than later. Oh, this is spicy. We are only in the first week of the escalating rhetoric and tariffs, but China already is appealing to its Asian rivals, Australia and the EU, to join in fighting the supposed American bully. Oh, but Oh, but so far there are understandably very few takers. Yeah, the world needs the dollar. The world needs our energy. The world needs the American economy to sell into. An exasperated China is now also running vintage Korean War era propaganda videos of Mao Zedong bragging about how he was standing up to then President Dwight Eisenhower. Does Beijing really believe that airing ossified threats from decades ago issued by the greatest mass killer in human history as one U.S. president who warned of the military-industrial complex is going to win over neutral nations? Or maybe China thinks calls to Western nations to stop American trade bullying will resonate. This from the greatest trade bully, cheat, and rogue commercial nation in history. Well, they do have some financial strengths to the other countries. But they're running a nearly $1 trillion trade surplus with the world. I think that's what? That's about like 5-ish% of their GDP. Its mercantilism is the result of market manipulations, product dumping, asymmetrical tariffs. Come on, get to the meat. Patent, copyright, and technology theft. Yeah. Where's the part where it loses? Well, I wanted to talk about this. China has done everything possible to incur global distrust and fear. Most of the world accepts that the COVID-19 epidemic that killed and maimed millions worldwide was birthed in a Wuhan virology lab under the auspices of the People's Liberation Army. This is key because we're going to look at polling that you're going to like. The world also remembers that China and the Chinese-controlled World Health Organization lied repeatedly about the origins and spread of the virus. China's so-called allies, Russia and India, have historical grievances and ongoing border disputes. Yeah. For now, Trump should persuade our allies that if they were not so subject to Chinese mercantilism, they would have more flexibility to ensure fair trade with the U.S. Oh, man. I should have previewed this. I'm sorry. But he's going into the Uyghurs. Here, this is what I want to get to. This is what... Share this tab instead. The U.S. CIA has concluded that COVID-19 virus probably originated in a Chinese research laboratory rather than developing in nature. How confident are you that the CIA is correct? 66%, 2/3 confident. 42% very. 56% of Democrats confident. Like every single Republican, like 81%, 58% very. 59% of independents. The country thinks that this came from a lab. Period. End of story. The people who don't, not even Democrats. It's like 27% of Democrats. But how likely is it that the COVID-19 virus was deliberately released by China as a way to attack the United States? That's really strong words. 48%, at least somewhat likely. 25%, very likely. Very similar to the 50% of U.S. likely voters that think China is an enemy. Only like 15% say China is an ally. We talked a lot about China last week. This has been coming for a long time. The voters have known that China was not on our side. Very much so. And everybody was going along China, sending all the jobs to China. China. Almost 80% of voters, 80% of voters said that the interests of China do not match the interests of the United States. I forget the exact wording, but that's a strong signal. And it's been like that for decades. But this is going to get worse. Like they're going to probably try to do everything. And again, I've seen reports of factory orders being cut, people not going to, there's videos going around there of China, people like not on the street, factories empty. But the news is getting better, though. Here's the thing. So this is why I think we're going to win, is because we're going to see a lot more like this. We're going to see country deals. China's out there saying, well, they basically, their new strategy is telling America that we need to reverse our tariff policy. And that's it. They put the reciprocal tariffs on. They're digging in. I guess they tried to sell some treasuries. Maybe that didn't work for them. Probably because Trump somehow spurred that flight to safety we saw. I don't know, but NVIDIA commits to 500 billion AI server production in the US. This comes atop of at least 6 trillion that global corporations have said that they're going to invest in the US. Now that the Trump administration is calling for this and has been saying that the tariffs are coming, that's a massive amount of money. And of course, it's spread out over years, obviously. But if you take 10 trillion, let's just call it, we're going to probably see more than that. But that could be like $1 trillion a year of new economic activity and plenty of jobs that go to construct all this stuff and people who work. I mean, this is huge. This is going to reform the economy. It all needs to come relatively soon, though, which is the challenge. But I don't know. Like, these are the kinds of things that make me think we're going to see more asymmetric warfare. China says U.S. chicken has salmonella. But this smells like payback. China just accused American poultry of carrying salmonella, not the chicken nuggies, but yeah, meat and bone meal from the U.S. is suddenly on Beijing's biohazard list. Now they're cranking up inspections and acting like they just discovered a food crime scene. But here's the tea. This kind of health alert magically shows up every time the U.S. and China start throwing trade punches. I don't know. I saw Fauci out there talking about a new virus release. This is something that Alex Jones has been covering. We're not going to watch a 40-minute clip. But have the globalists launch a new COVID strain to derail the Trump agenda. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is now warning the world that a new coronavirus that is able to infect humans has magically appeared 3 days after Fauci predicted it. I think I had that Fauci prediction tweet up. I think we talked about that on a show. So I don't know. We're not out of the woods, but the question is China going to capitulate in this kind of environment? Do they have more levers to play? Is it going to be chaos as they unleash potentially hundreds of thousands of human assets they have here? What about all that infrastructure that they've ostensibly been able to co-op? Are they going to be able to turn the world against us from a trade perspective? Have we only seen the opening salvo of their war against the U.S. Treasury? Like, these are all really crazy questions that we're going to find the answer out to pretty soon. I tell you, like, they got Taiwan out there, and you saw the numbers. Like, we talked about Taiwan. Overwhelmingly voter support, Air Force, Navy, us sending trainers over there. They support us helping by sending weapons to Taiwan by vast majorities. They don't support troops on the ground by a majority, but it's still like, I think it was 30 or 40%. And so that's out there as well. And at the same time, I'm afraid we're going to see increasing craziness here. I think it's coming this summer, maybe. Things are warming up. We're starting to see protests. They're going to have more and more of these things. I think they already have one scheduled for April 29th, another hands-off kind of thing. And listen, if I was a Soros type that was routing USAID money through a network of NGOs that I set up based with my own money, like, those pipelines still exist to pump money through. And we've already seen the accusations that a lot of these protests have been funded. And then you see stuff like this. Taylor Lorenz's heinous defense of Luigi Mangione as a morally good man disgusts Twitter users. I love the framing here, Fox. Good job. I would have gone straight to Taylor to get the words out of her own mouth. But basically, she just like rattled off all the great things about this. He's a man who's a revolutionary. He's famous. He's handsome and young. He's smart, and he's a person who seems like this is a morally good man. He murdered a CEO of United Healthcare in cold blood, which is hard to find. It's hard to find. Man, that's crazy. It's hard to find a young man in America as morally good as a cold-blooded killer. Good job, Taylor Lorenz. If you don't know Taylor Lorenz, I'm not going to tell you. She's a blight on humanity. But that's crazy. And then you have the killer of Austin Metcalf walking today. I think that's going to be crazy. He, I think, has taken over $400,000 in legal defense. A ostensibly woke judge reduced his bail necessary to walk to $250,000. He's out. Murdered somebody not too long ago. It's on video, so I guess we'll see. But, Texas has some pretty lax self-defense laws. And I think a lot of people say this guy did it in self-defense. And what happens if the jury doesn't turn out that way? I don't know. But look at Reddit. This is where Reddit's at right now. I think they're still in narrative search mode, but what they appear to be mulling over right now is mostly trying to get Trump on a constitutional technicality. That's what most of these stories feel like. Trump official declaring anyone who preaches hate for America will be deported. Worries users. They just skip the First Amendment. They're just not even blah, blah, blah. First Amendment. This is the people that censored hundreds of thousands of Americans. Not even more than like a year ago, 2 years ago. Brutal censorship regime is all of a sudden complaining about Donald Trump cracking down on people's First Amendment rights who aren't even citizens. Salvadoran president says he won't return the wrongly deported man back to the U.S. This is what all the principle first bulwark people are talking about, how Trump openly defied the Supreme Court by presenting a very selective set of disinformation, very disingenuous. Oh, Trump just defied the Supreme Court. What's John Roberts going to do about it? They're like begging, they're itching for a fight. They're trying to find something, I think, that's enough to get the outrage level higher than where it is right now. It's not high enough. Murdoch paper floats impeaching Trump over tariffs. Oh, maybe if we had more time, I'd go down that rabbit hole. Maybe I'll do it after the show. Oh, more First Amendment. White House bars AP from Oval Office event. We could look at the comments. I wonder how crazy they are. I haven't looked in, but man, what they did to Harvard was beautiful. They're cutting off funding. Harvard is so pissed. They're suing to get that money back. Trump says he supports deporting U.S. citizens. This is an MSNBC article. I bet you that's taken out of context. Here's 9,000 upvotes. Bernie and AOC are starting a new political movement before our eyes. Man, it's always like, man, that's not a bad ad. I always go to Reddit and it's always like HIV medication advertisement. It's like, why are you showing me this? So mostly about this El Salvadoran guy. I guess that's what in the news is in the news today. But they feel like they're itching for a fight. But I wanted to leave you all before we go to chat and if any more questions with a little bit of what I think is good news. This is a little kiss from Ted. He's out there opining on Twitter. Tea leaves. Trump will release a mother of all bombs on the 2020 election fraud at a time he determines optimum. When he does, it will be with non-impeachable evidence of a stolen 2020 election. And the arc of American history will be altered. The thieves destroyed. But like, throw that into the mix. In a vacuum, that's wild. But what about a vacuum where we're like in a not so cold war, maybe with China, where we have another summer of love funded by enemies of the United States? Where the mainstream media gets even more histrionic about economic destruction that Americans voted for out of their own mouths. I don't know. Crazy times. Where do you think this is going? Drop your comments and let's take a look. Salmonella is better than bat to pangolin disease. Yeah. Is it like, listen, I'm careful when I cook with chicken. I don't cross-contaminate. I don't undercook the stuff, right? But is it really a big thing? You just don't really actually hear about. I can understand if you're in the food services, how you need to like hammer that into people's heads. I don't know. Japan restricts imports of rice, which caused the cost of rice to be higher in Japan, but it keeps their farmers in business. Yeah. This helps secure Japan's food supply in case things get bad. Well, the UK is doing this right now with steel. I don't know the whole story, but I guess they allowed a steel company to get purchased by China, and China's like, oh, we can't run this anymore. It's too expensive. They're shutting it down. And I think Britain's going to nationalize it. They like went and commandeered a vessel full of coal to keep the thing running so that their employees had work to do. It's pretty wild. Yeah, and like times of largesse, when it's hands off and free market capitalism and taking over and the geopolitical lines blur. Yeah, imagine that. Like you have to actually be able to manufacture ammunition, which means you need to mine brass and other stuff, right? And the rare earths. I think that's going to be a pretty big thing. The whole idea of like, well, it isn't actually about having the rare earths. It's about the refinement capacity. Well, if it's so important to us, why don't we have the refinement capacity? Like you just made it even more clear that it's a problem with globalism. It's not that we don't have the deposits, which we do. It really, I bet you, I haven't pulled the thread enough, but I really bet you the rare earth thing comes down to it makes a lot of pollution, I'm guessing. And that's why everybody in the world lets China do it. I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA did it trying to get rid of Trump. Well, I think they've probably done multiple things to try and get rid of Trump, not least of which was Crossfire Hurricane. China. I'm not brave enough to do a impersonation. I'm sorry. Not what you're here for. It's not what you're here for. Back in December 2024, Peter Hotez was talking about a new virus coming on the 25th of January. The specific date that had to be a psyop. Let me take that one as a lookup. I know the name. I didn't see that call, but was he a EcoHealth guy? I want to look into this. No, here he is. Professor Vaccine Scientist. I'll look into this. What interests me about that is my understanding is that COVID was actually released in like October and it didn't really get worldwide until, January, February, which we all saw. So there's a delay in those kind of things. I'm guessing this is Taylor Lorenz. She is definitely totally unhinged. A psychopath. And, you can go watch her at Blue Sky. If she hasn't gotten kicked off yet, she's been fired from most of the jobs she has. Al Jazeera, a USAID CIA propaganda corporation. You're still reading and reporting what they say. No, I mean, it's like I'm smart enough to know straight reporting. And that was the article I could find. And we looked at the headline and the headline's right. I don't know who their funding is. But it's like everything in the world is, I guess, funded by nefarious people at this point, right? It's like, show me somebody whose China or BlackRock money hasn't touched or whatever. Sovereign wealth fund is everywhere. A lot of the conservative outlets are funded from places where you're just like, I don't know. Like, how does that make sense? We're not. Our outside money came from Nosen Lau and Partners, a venture capital organization that Ted Carroll is a managing member of. And it was in local investor money. So now you know. And money that I guess Scott Rasmussen wrangled up from friends and family. Taylor Lorenz is both crazy and completely unethical. Yeah, for people who don't know, let's see how long it takes us to find something crazy. Taylor Lorenz on Blue Sky. Don't say I didn't warn you. You got to be careful going to Blue Sky. If you search the wrong term, if you search for like your Aunt Margaret and type in like peg on Blue Sky, you're going to find stuff. Okay. Matthew, I love how this is framed as controversial. The ex-Washington Post reporter says she does not support gun violence, but that she is not going to cry when those who uphold violent systems are shot down. I love how this is framed as controversial. The second post we looked at, folks, this is Taylor Lorenz, and she is popular and famous. She has a following of millions, I think, right? And I hesitate to use the word influential, but people listen to her. People like me, I'm signal boosting her right now, but it's for your own good. The violent system she's talking about is healthcare insurance. And so she says it's totally understandable. What does she say? She's not going to cry. So, I mean, what does that say? I wish any of these right-wing rags would engage with the things I actually say. Why are the headlines about Luigi and not the headlines about the healthcare system? What you can put in a headline is that I believe our healthcare system is evil and morally bankrupt. Well, I got news for you. The reason you got fired from Washington Post is probably because they make a lot of money from the healthcare system that you're calling evil and morally bankrupt. So don't blame it on right-wing rags. Like, this lady is just completely, what the heck? This is blue sky, man. This is like your average blue sky. Mark, you are more influential than Taylor. Well, I'm glad of that. I do not want her to be a prominent voice. Wait, what's this? Go to Canada, and she would go to the U.S. for MRIs. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's so evil. Oh, but I can't. Go fly to another country that doesn't have a evil healthcare system. Have fun. Look in the mirror. Stop treating China like an enemy. They're not. Fox News, especially Larry Kudlow, Mark Levin, Maria Bartiromo, and Jesse Waters are propagandists and even spreading lies about China. Not helpful. Okay, well, we're public opinion aficionados here. And what I can tell you is that the American people overwhelmingly think that China is an enemy and not an ally, and that trend actually preceded Donald Trump being a presidential candidate. And those people made those assessments based on things that they've seen, not just from Jesse Waters and Mark Levin, because those people don't have enough reach to convince literally 160 million adults or whatever it is, right? That China is an enemy. Like, that's not where it came from. It came from observations. We've been globalizing for a very long time. There's been things like widely reported accusations that our own politicians have potentially been corrupted by these people. The fact that it's a communist nation is, and the fact that our military, has to swear an oath to protect the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic, and that communism has been something that America has been at some form of war with for a very long time. Like, I'm just telling you, these are the realities that create the perception in most voters' heads that China is an enemy. Now, I can tell you that I don't think I'm very susceptible to propaganda, and that I have my eyes open, I think, and that I try very hard not to use propaganda outlets, and that I've seen, in my opinion, over the years, a lot of evidence that whether they're actively fighting us or not, they are doing things that are not in our best interest. And unfortunately, nobody in a position of authority in America has really had the intestinal fortitude to call them out for it. And so I think it should be like a wait and see approach. Okay, well, Donald Trump's going to talk to you and we'll see what's going on. And now we maybe can be a little bit more sure that our own State Department and intel agencies are going to be a little bit more sanguine with the American people. But all I know is that it's been accused it's been reported, not by me, that foreign actors were involved in manipulating our elections. And I wonder who those people are. And I'm not saying China is potentially the only potential enemy, but yeah, like, I mean, what more do you want to hear? This is a ton of caveats. I'm trying to be as fair as absolutely possible. But when half the country thinks China is an enemy, I kind of do too. And I also got to see how the sort of like top education system visa racket with foreign students works. Many of them from China. So I don't know. People fighting about China. Sorry. China is an aggressive competitor that had stated it will replace us. Yeah, and they're, stoking nationalism and have postured about Taiwan and blah, 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 blah. The part that makes me mad, though, is the idea that they could potentially be involved in influencing our elections. Specifically, this idea of having financial influence with our politicians, like the accused Chinese spy that was engaged in acts with Swalwell. I don't want this to devolve into a fight about China. This isn't I'm not here to cover China. I'm here to cover what Americans think about China, and the answer is they're not happy with them. Because the perception is that China has taken Americans' jobs. Whether China had help, I think, is an academic point. I think it's obviously correct. But there we are. All right, what else we got? Something other than China. Comrade Winnie the Pooh is the most excellent leader on earth. Come on, you're gonna get me yelled at. I had a Pooh in one of my thumbnails. Can I bring that up? I think it was pretty good if you didn't see it. I was happy with my artwork. And again, this is all like tongue-in-cheek stuff. I like to be a little risque. It's my one creative outlet. I gotta zoom out. You got to admit, this is one of my better ones. Economic World War III. Oh, I don't mean to laugh at myself, but it was a good one. No, they are our enemy. They steal our technology, spy, never live up to their end of the bargain. Beyond sick of it. Yeah, I know. And it's like, I'm not saying that we're like pure here. We spy a lot as well. We literally undermine democracies across the world. I'm not saying that they don't have reasons. I think the whole world has a lot of reasons to be very unhappy with America. But I think one of the things they should do is probably not be so hostile towards Donald Trump. But part of the problem is that it looks like the vast majority of media around the world is propaganda. Question: why do you think Doge is losing? China is enemy. Thanks for everything. Why do I think Doge is losing? Yeah. Well, okay, let's take that. So Doge, I don't know if Doge is losing. I don't know where Doge is at. I feel like my gut is that once that budget bill got passed in the House, that there was some behind the scenes discussion, agreement, deal, calculus that we're not aware of that has vastly changed the way they look at cutting government funding. I don't know what was promised about that bill. I haven't seen enough detail about what additional cuts are required, but I think we all heard that it's like a 1.5 trillion over 10 years, which is kind of a drop in the bucket. And everybody's patting themselves on the back because they got they're getting a tax cut, which they love, but that it's neutral because they're covering it up with tariffs, which I don't know if we'll be able to or not. It'd be kind of stupid for us to cut taxes, raise the deficit even more, and then not have tariffs. And I don't know what was promised, but I think we all know that Doge dropped the counter. Elon Musk came out and kind of moved the goalposts down to 150 billion, which is vastly different than 1 trillion. And so I don't know why, but it's weird. It stinks. Doge is winning, I think. Well, I hope. I only just saw that, and I think it's only very recent news, so I don't know what's going on. More Doge. I wholeheartedly agree with the idea of Doge. I think every company should have their own Doge department, and I would like to work for a very large company leading one, because that's kind of what I did at Walmart. And let me tell you, our productivity could be so much better if, like, there's so much waste in these companies. It's absolutely ridiculous. Musk has about 19 days left before he's reassigned. I thought they have 130 days. How long has the presidency been? January, February, March, April. It's been 90 days. Oh, yeah. So he's coming up on it. Yeah. I think the idea was never that he was there the whole time. I think it was like he got the team going and then went back to his own company. So I don't think Elon leaving is a loss. I think them moving the goalposts from 1 trillion to 150 billion, if that's what really happened, I don't know if it is, that would be kind of a loss. Yeah. Suddenly the American doctors are innocent? Well, not according to U.S. likely voters. I don't know about that. Who said that? They shouldn't be. I want many people arrested. Yeah, this is it. Lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. They never knew how bad it is. Neither did we. Yeah, there's just realities that we can never know or understand that handicap them. Some people get corrupted and flip. Other people get convinced. Donald Trump got convinced by a lot of people in his first term to not do things that were in voters' best interest. And it was a mistake in many places. I think he would say that. Oh yeah, let's not forget this thank you. Look in the mirror. Fentanyl. China sells precursors. Are you going to try and argue that all around the world, only America turns it into fentanyl and gives it to drug addicts? No other country. Well, whatever. If we want them to stop and they don't. Precursors, I don't know enough about that, but Donald Trump thinks that China is the source of fentanyl. I'm willing to go ahead and press the I believe button based on his intel. But whatever. Again, I listed a whole bunch of reasons why I think we should be suspicious of China, and even forgot fentanyl. But thanks for reminding me. So fentanyl is the number one reason now. In my mind, right? China has been working with America to help the fentanyl issue, but Trump and America never appreciated it and just blamed China. China called this out a few weeks ago, and this hardened them. I don't know. Drop a link. I'd love to look at it, but they could have been right. I don't think Biden would have worked with China to crack down on fentanyl. Again, all the other stuff, like, isn't Doge what McKinsey claims to do for McKinsey? Oh no. Do you want to go there? I can say some stuff about McKinsey, including the fact that I interviewed with them, and I'm very glad that I didn't work there. McKinsey is a management consultant, and they're very interesting people. They think about the world in different ways than other folks. They like to use frameworks. So it's like, well, let's say I wanted to go to the bathroom. What are the 4 steps? And I'll write them on a whiteboard, and I'll always refer to them when I go to the bathroom. Because if I'm going to teach another company how to do that, they got to know, right? And they love to see your logic, and it doesn't work for people like me, who I'm an intuitor, and I'm pretty scattershot. I'm kind of all over the place. I like to throw crap at a wall and see what sticks. I think that that's iterative. That stuck. Let's do more of that. And then you grow. And if you understand things from a systems perspective and understand the corporate context, you could do a lot. I did a lot, right? And McKinsey, it's like, well, no, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about this question in a very specific way because we value mental conformity. And I do not like mental conformity. I think it's the enemy of art, which I think a lot of corporate stuff is art. But whatever, that's my spiel about McKinsey people. What they do is that they take consultants and basically sell their time at a massive markup. So they're sales companies selling consultants' time. And so they'll come to a big company like Walmart and say whatever they need to say in order to sell Walmart their consultants' time. The more, the merrier. And so Walmart will say, okay, well, yeah, we do have this problem. We got too much inefficiency, blah, blah, blah. And here's a $10 million engagement. Come to work for us for 6 months on this problem. And I've seen a very specific report, a very long report prepared by one of these companies. And it wasn't McKinsey, it was another one for an issue in Walmart, an issue that I was also working on. And I looked at their PowerPoint deck and it was pretty. They have their own internal art departments and it was well structured and whatever. But basically what it said is if you wanted to solve this problem, here are the 3 biggest sources. And so we think that the number one source is the best one to go after. And here's the kind of things you would do to go after it. And here we are, 6 million, thank you. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, they don't even understand how the system works. This is actually not solvable. This is coming because it's some upstream tech issue that I'm already trying to work on. And they don't even know that it's because that, like I immediately, and I'd only worked there for a year and I knew more than them. And it's like, well, they didn't talk to the right people. And ultimately what it comes down to is the solution they were selling was one that was like, hey, whack a rat. Oh, a rat popped up its head. We whack it. And it's like, oh, it comes back up. Right. And so it's like, let's spend money to reduce this issue without understanding the root cause and putting a systematic work in place to solve that problem. And maybe it was just that consulting company. But it's like I hear McKinsey and they're gonna go in and they're gonna tell Allstate, instead of being the good hands, be the boxing gloves and just beat up your customers because you're gonna squeeze more profit out of them. And you got to keep up with the rest of the industry, and the industry's turning hostile. And so Taylor Lorenz does have a point about these insurance companies. The McKinsey Allstate report is famous for how it exposed the fact that you have these overpaid people coming in and literally giving corporations the moral authority to screw over customers and stakeholders. I just don't think they should be shot. And it's a huge racket because, as we've all started to understand, a significant portion of these companies' revenues is coming from mom and pop taxpayer, especially ones like Booz Allen Hamilton and Accenture. I love this rabbit hole. Thank you so much for bringing this up. Now, Booz Allen Hamilton, we know, had 98% of their revenue coming from the federal government, but I don't think Accenture was as exposed as them. And I haven't looked at this in a while. Oh, wow. I mean, it's like 25%. Why did this happen? Why is Accenture's stock dropping 25% literally since the week after inauguration? That's weird. Let's look at Booz Allen. Are they worse? Oof. What is that? 71% collapse in the Booz Allen stock price. This is like a leech on the government. So the government workers like, well, geez, I don't know how to do this. They go to their boss. Oh, I don't know how to do this. Well, Booz Allen, that sales guy, he's always there, embedded behind government lines, selling the consultants at a markup. I don't know. I'm sorry if anybody's consultants here, but like I've just seen them, and I've seen them, and I'm not impressed. Partly because Admiral Rickover would not solve problems with consultants, and he was right. Question: why is so much focus on conspiracies to blame Israel for everything. Again, are you trying to trap me? Are you trying to trap me? People are frustrated, and they're rightly allowed to be suspicious of nebulous power structures. And Israel has a very famous intelligence agency, and it has very observable inroads to the U.S. government. Let's just put it that way. For instance, people have observed that there are a large number of dual citizens. And although that appears to be legal and not violate any rules, it raises questions because in other situations like that, often there are talks about conflict of interest and whatever. And so that's one of the very salient reasons why people like to blame Israel, as well as the extent to which some of their fundraising groups are very aggressive, making inroads with politicians. I'm trying to be very diplomatic. I don't blame Israel for everything. I'm sure there are things that Israel should be blamed for, just as I'm sure there are many things the United States should be blamed for. And if we were going to list from the top down, I don't think I would put Israel at the top of the list. I would probably put China above them just for sheer size and the amount of money at work. And above that, probably like the NWO globalist Soros types. I don't know. Probably above that, our own intel agencies. But again, who are they doing their bidding for? I don't know. Pharmaceutical companies, sovereign wealth funds. I just don't know. I hope we find out someday because I think there are answers. And there's not simple answers. J.D. Vance ridiculed Chinese people as peasants. This did not go over well and has resulted in statements by the foreign ministry, reiterating that unless America shows respect, they won't even talk. Well, you know what? I don't hear what anybody in China says, and I don't know if it's respectful or not. And so, again, J.D. Vance made a statement. It was probably not correctly chosen words or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, I think most people in America didn't know the statement got made. And so if people in China are taking a statement and using it for political purposes like this, I have to wonder if that's in the best interest of our relationship. Because remember, China's most favored nation. They're our biggest trading partner, blah, blah, blah. Why is our biggest trading partner using the words? You know, I'm just saying, like, there's two sides to this. So, geez. Doge is in good hands even without Musk. Yeah, I agree. I agree very much. Peter, first name. Amazing talent. They were great on Fox News. Group interview. Maybe it was with Sean Hannity. It was with Brett Baer, and it was outstanding. I wish they'd do one every week. You know, I would call, essentially, we've created a class of American peasants as well. I mean, it's like, okay, well, what does the word translate into Mandarin? I don't know. Did they translate the... is there some level of disregard for the Chinese people that was put in by the translator? I don't know. But again, it's like, ultimately, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up just so you know I'm not making this up because you didn't see my other show. Let's just go back and look at China. Let's go back and look at our very first poll on China. Where was it? How far back do we have to go? I'm sorry, our website. We're getting a better website, but it's not very searchable. Okay. November 2008. I think history would tell us that after the George W. Bush administration, America was globalizing to China with both hands and feet. Amazon, not even a decade old yet at this point. No, 11 years. 11 years of Amazon, I think. People are starting to, Walmart's shipping their supply chain overseas. Everybody super happy to globalize at a top level. And Americans are like, what's most important? Only 28% say where the product's made, 63% price and quality. That makes sense. That's probably held up. How important are U.S. relations with China? 46% very important, 38% important. People acknowledge that China is an important part of our relationship. What? I don't know that. Was there something about a toy ban from China in 2008? But here we go. Is China an ally of the United States or an enemy or somewhere in between? This is the first time we asked this question in 2008. 12% said ally, 12% said enemy. Fast forward a decade, less than a decade, and this number was up to, I think, the mid-30s. It's 50% now. Half of U.S. likely voters think China's an enemy. But here's the one. First time we asked it, I think the second or third time the numbers got higher. Agree or disagree with this statement? What is good for the Chinese economy is good for the U.S. economy. Okay? 15% agree, 64% disagree. Pretty sure this number got into the 70s the second time we asked. And so my point is, according to the U.S. voter, they think that Chinese economic interests are not in their economic interests. In a period where everybody who rules them, because they're peasants too, basically, is globalizing with both hands and both feet. And so although you may come up with reasons why stuff that our leaders say pisses off a bunch of Chinese people or vice versa, what you have to acknowledge is that the American people have a very big perceived grievance with China. Who's to blame? I don't know. But the issue with the American people is the American dream was stolen. They're very worried about their financial future. And China is the salient. Yeah. So it's tough. Like, I know it's complex and we'll never know. Here's what you can do. Look in the mirror. Give me your two favorite news sources on China. Not your two favorite. Give me two news sources to follow on China. One that you think is telling the accurate position of the CCP leadership, and one that you think is anti-China propaganda. And I'll take a look and see what I think. That's the only way you're going to understand this. And I don't know if you ever can, because to this day, I still don't know if I could ever even tell you what the accurate number of people killed in the Ukraine-Russia conflict is. How can I ever get that information? The only people that know are probably our U.S. intel agencies, and they wouldn't even release it because it would undermine the pro-Ukrainian propaganda, probably. I read that the Social Security issues were identified in 2003, but Congress didn't take action. Doge shine a light on it. I heard the same thing, Anthony. I forget the specifics, but I think it's been out there. I'm not conflating anything. Listen to Fox bashing Chinese heads against the wall. Who was that quote from? Who was that quote from? I looked up China bashing heads, and what I got was President Xi Jinping yesterday warning that foreign forces attempting to bully China will get their heads bashed against the Great Wall. Who was that? I don't know. This is all just going back to 2021. I remember hearing those words. I'm sorry. I can't find them. I don't remember who it was. Sitting on a pile of Chinese skulls. Was that Hegseth? I don't know. I was in the military. It sounds like something that Hegseth would say. I'm kind of okay with your warfighters being warfighters. We trained against Chinese subs back in 2004, 2005. I learned that the Han, kind of a noisy little rattle trap, and got to track them a lot. It was fun. It was fun. That's what warfighters are supposed to do. Yeah, I have a feeling that Look in the Mirror's internet connection would mysteriously cut off. Oh no, don't do it. I don't want. I'm not here for a fight. Oh no, he said it. Even Tiananmen Square was greatly exaggerated. What do you think would have happened in America had the far left activists occupied the White House for a month? I don't know. We're not going to be able to get to the bottom of these disagreements, let's just say. I'm sorry, we can't. But again, Tell me, give me the name of 2 news sources, one that's propaganda and one that's not, and we'll see. Buttigieg was a McKinsey rep. Yep. And he was not a good mayor. That's all I will say about that. Or a transportation secretary, for sure. They excel in selling their time. Just continue to insult Chinese people and there will be no deal. I'm okay. I'm not. And I don't know if Trump is. He's talking strong against them. But if they're spreading around Hegseth and JD Vance's words about other situations and in different contexts, I don't know if they want a deal. Just billions dumping the dollar. The EU is already talking to China about lifting their tariffs on Chinese EVs. Maybe. I don't know. I heard I heard Europe was going to do an economic deal with the US today. So we'll see. Booz Allen is big in the Department of Defense. 98% is the number I heard. 98% of Booz Allen Hamilton. Oh man, there's been so many comments since I've been talking about China. Yeah, I don't know how their stock has only crumbled 71%. It's absolutely crazy. I guess that just means that Doge needs to cut more. Man, this China thing hit a spark. I'd like to get smarter about China. I really would. Obviously, we've evoked some strong feelings here. If you think China is running out of steam, you're using fentanyl. I didn't say I think they're running out of steam. I just think that the early review that I've seen based on people that have video that I have unable to verify show that there have been some consequences. I don't know how big, but there have been. Here we go. Let's get on to something that I like. 2028, JD Vance versus Stephen A. Smith. At this juncture, if he can control his statements about China, I guess. JD Vance wins 38-34, but it's so far out, those numbers are going to tighten up, and it all comes down to what happens between now and then. But if the economy is in the toilet in 2028, I'll vote for Stephen A. Smith. Yeah, big if. Big if. It all depends on what he's got a lot of work to do between now and then, coming up to speed on policy and stuff like that. But he does well. He's not a front runner. Kamala Harris is the front runner. Without a doubt, it's hers to lose. And we'll see. She might get a deal. Konstantin Velix, Gordon Chang at the Wall Street Journal is fair. I met Gordon Chang at CPAC. I'll start reading him. I haven't really been following him that much. Gordon Chang has been redirecting China's predicting China's collapse for 20 years now. He's afraid. He's a fraud. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, people have been predicting the United States' collapse too. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, well, it looks like there's just a million China comments. Listen, you got to say that I'm charitable. I don't think I've blocked a single person on Twitter. I've only banned one person on chat because they were spamming. Look in the mirror as a troll. Please pay no attention. Thanks. Well, he was talking in good faith. I disagreed with him, and I was open to more information. But this isn't supposed to be a video on China. And again, I didn't see, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see the news sources that I was asking for. Look in the mirror. If I missed it, just please tell me right now so I can see it. What do you want me to cover? People are saying Epoch Times. I've done an interview or two with them. They might be good. Yeah. He wants me to go to YouTube. You can find whatever you want on YouTube. Sorry. Any of those hundreds of videos of whites and blacks in China and how they're received. I don't know, dude. No, I want to read stuff. I want to read things from a news source that has journalists. And I would like to compare how they cover the stuff so that I can make my own educated decisions on who I believe is lying. And so far as Ukraine is concerned, I think literally everybody's lying. except for the people that cover the maps. I've seen some YouTube videos where I'm like, yeah, this is probably an honest take. But all right. Okay, last call, folks. Everybody coming up on 11 here. I believe the plan is to stream Wednesday night. I'm going to be out of town Friday, so maybe Ted will do an interview with somebody Thursday. Open your eyes and stop drinking Kool-Aid. Come on, man. I'm literally asking you to not, like, help me not drink Kool-Aid. And you're saying, oh, no, you just got to drink this flavor of Kool-Aid instead. No, that's not how it rolls. Anyways, that's enough of that guy. So Wednesday night, not sure what it's going to be yet. We're trying to get more election integrity coverage this week. Hopefully some big news will drop that we'll be able to cover. We do have some interesting questions coming up. Thursday, question day is tomorrow. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. We won't have questions back for Thursday, but we do have some fun stuff coming back tomorrow. So we can cover those Wednesday night. And maybe I'll dig up those economic numbers. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully the world doesn't blow up and we get in a shooting war because of J.D. Vance's peasants comment, I guess. Seems like it really got some people hot under the collar. But thanks, everybody, for the great night. Had a good conversation. Learned a lot about China. And hopefully there will be some nice positive news coming out this week about trade deals. And now I'm going to watch John Fawcett, my friend's interview with Mike Benz-Cyber. Just got released today. And if you're following me and you like the discussion we had and the stuff that we do, we cover public opinion. It's a very unique aspect of the news. I am not really a journalist. I'm a researcher, and I research public opinion facts because I think it gives important context about the realities. And no matter what you think about things like, for instance, propaganda on either side of the Chinese issue, you have to admit that the fact that half of America thinks China is an enemy is a pretty important fact when it comes down to resolving this little situation that we find ourselves in. China has been on the opposite side of the interests of the American people. Donald Trump is the only person that has meaningfully attempted to address that. Those are facts. Not propaganda, facts. We ask Americans, this is what they say. They think China is getting the upper hand economically. Trump is the only person that got in and is taking action against China. And so whether you think like the tariffs are good or bad or whatever, probably they'll go away. The issue will go away with the trade deals. And what we have is China isolated on the other side of a tariff standoff that I think we're going to find once the economy settles. Americans are going to be very happy about that. And so if you like that kind of analysis, please hit like again, subscribe, follow us on YouTube or Rumble, Rasmussen_poll at YouTube, Rasmussen Reports Rumble. I'm Honest Pollster on Twitter, and our main account is Rasmussen_poll. That's where the articles are. You can subscribe to read them. You can come to our website and support us, even if you want to just sign up for a free daily update. That'd be swell. Really appreciate everybody for hanging out so late.